Hello and welcome to Two Crones and a Microphone. I am Linda.
And I am Betty.
And I'm your third crone, Sally.
As cultural midwives, our podcast offers guidance and teaching to those who seek wisdom from us as experienced crones. We utilize effective methods to connect with ourselves, with our surroundings, and we embrace spirituality as a source of resilience and empowerment. Visit us on our website, Two Crones and a Microphone, all spelled out.com, for additional information, and our Two Crones and a Microphone YouTube channel. Yay. You'll know you've landed on our YouTube channel because you'll see the two owls and photos of the three of us there.
Today, we are diving deeper into what it means to be a crone and to speak truth with wisdom, wit, and a fair amount of shrewd life experience applied to real world situations. Now, we also want to include you guys who are sages at this point and invite you to listen because guess what? A lot of you are now living with Crones. Big surprise, right? So you've been through the maiden, the mother, the queen, and now you're with the crone. And the crone is a totally different person than the one you married or set up housekeeping with or are dating. So if you listen to this, it's going to help you figure out what exactly is going on with this absolutely wonderful woman that I am now with.
We have been talking about how we rework our beautiful dreams as we age, as we change and transform. The elder or crone or sage is associated with those changes. It's because of our very life experiences themselves, the opportunities we have had to work through our varied work experiences, travel, if that's something you enjoy, relationships, experiences in parenting or grandparenting, all of the many things in our lives that we have done, that we are able to look at where we are at this point and add a dimension to what we offer in the world, a dimension that we didn't have in our 20s.
Thank you. I love that. We're calling this podcast the Wise, Wily, Witty, Straight Talking Crone. And we're also going to be sharing ideas and invite you to spark your own ideas about what might be called a croning ceremony or some kind of celebration you might want to put together to celebrate this particular life transition. Now, let's talk first about claiming your inner crone. No matter what your calendar age is, we have access to our inner crone, our wise, intuitive, skillful oracle. Who's an oracle? That's someone who looks ahead, gets intuitive wisdom, really begins to anchor it in reality. And we are wisdom keepers as crones because, as you both said, we have been through the gauntlet. We have lived life. We've learned a lot. Hopefully, we're coming away with some joy and resilience as a result of that. And we get at this point in time as elders, we get to be what we call a way shower. We get to hold the torch of wisdom, wit, maybe a little bit of wiliness, because we need to be clever too in order to operate in life, right? And we get to be a way shower. So I'm going to cover first witty and body. What does body mean? It's opening up your treasure chest, your sort of sensual self to the world as you so choose. You get to discriminate. But, I'll share with you for the first time in over a decade, I'm actually in a dating relationship with a great guy, and I am loving what is opening up for me. One of the things that's opened up is, just in the last 6 months, I've revived my dance wisdom. And I'm doing some jazz and some other sacred and sensual dance that really is shifting for me my own relationship with my body. And also, it's a lot of fun. And it's great to have that level of creative expression. So our inner crone also understands the importance of belly laughter and truth telling and pure pleasure, and also witty repartee. She tells it like it is. If you want to send a flirty text, let's use a little bit of innuendo. It can be a lot of fun. So that's the witty and the bawdy. Who wants to take on wise?
Well, I'm going to jump in and take on wise because the wise crone is the one that understands the craft of deep listening. We've listened at this point to a lot of different people in our lives and have that perspective where we can sit back and kind of listen to other people's stories and maybe jump in and share a bit of our own, but also our willingness to listen to other people, of looking at how we can be supportive in communities and how we can add to healing in both the people and the communities around us. Um, the wise crone directly accesses deep earth wisdom, the wisdom of the seasons of change and of creation. And I have this great story from someone you'll hear in the future who was just sharing about how she is serving kind of as a wisdom keeper in her apartment community, where the community has gotten together and is doing above the ground raised gardens that they're going to do as a community so that they can grow. And in her life, she's been very involved in planting and growing and flower clubs and doing those kinds of things. So what she's sharing in her 80s is the wisdom of how to do those things with the younger people in her apartment community. And she's really clear that she's there to share that wisdom of how to grow things and also how to build community, because her apartment community has people of all ages. And so I think that's just an awesome example of sharing of that wisdom and how to build and pass on the things that we've learned as we've aged and gathered, and to share that with others.
That's great. Thank you.
And the next piece is that she is wily. She's a deep strategist, shrewd, and crafty. And as we were putting this together, I remember thinking, for those of you who watched Downton Abbey, the epitome of this was Maggie Smith when she played the grandmother. She was amazing. I mean, the back doors that she used, she was always strategizing. She always got what she wanted too. And it was all those years of figuring things out. It was all coming together. And she had really mastered that art. I try and do it. One of my spirit animals happens to be the coyote, and Coyote's the trickster. And that's really how I do it. I mean, I try, if I need something done, very often I will make that person think that it was their idea to come up with, doing whatever I need done, because that seems to work pretty well, especially with our sages. Somehow they kind of miss the fact that I'm setting them up and go, oh, this is really wonderful. You thought of this when actually it was my idea. So that's something that I've been able to perfect. And of course, the wicked, there's always that wicked aspect. And I love this. The crone knows when to be wicked to create change for good. And what do I mean by wicked? For me, one of the greatest examples of this was Jane Fonda when she was on with Stephen Colbert. And she came out. Now, Jane is probably in her late 70s, possibly early 80s when she did this. She looked amazing. She had this dress on that I can't wear. I mean, she looked terrific. And she came in, she walked in, and she planted one on Stephen that knocked his socks off. I thought he was going to pass out under the desk. It was very, very funny. And he did ask her. He said, what made you wear that dress today? Because definitely it's out of character for a woman of her age, actually. And she looked straight at him and she said, because I can. And you know
Yes.
what? She's right. We can
Oh,
do whatever we want. If we want to look wicked, we can. If we want to look like this very professional person, we can. If we want to dress in whatever types of clothes we want, go for it. And if they're wicked, so much the better because it's
yeah.
fun.
It's
And that's really the bottom line. At this age, we need to have fun. We need to be joyful. And we need to step out in our power and go, just like Jane did, here I am. This is what I look like. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. For those of you who remember, I think about that when the Purple Hat Society came out, and that was just exactly the theme that was there when people said, I shall wear purple because I want to and I can, and to
yes.
give yourself permission to do that.
And
Yeah.
if it's a little wicked, so much the better.
Yeah, especially when you pull it off. It's
Oh,
great.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a little wild, just a
Uh-huh.
little wild and out of character. It's kind of fun
Lovely.
sometimes to be wild and out of
Yes,
character.
it is. Embrace that inner wild and express it outwardly. Yes,
Sure.
indeed.
Because at this age, who cares? Right?
Who cares? I mean,
Just
really.
go forward. If people are
Yeah,
going to think you're nuts, too bad for them.
that's their problem.
It is. It
And
is.
that's straight talk from a crone.
That's right. Because I'm at that point. I've been at that point for a while, but I've been a crone
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah,
I don't care. You don't like what I have on? Too bad.
yeah, exactly. There are a lot of goddesses, that we can pull up their stories, but really, I think we're going to save that for a different podcast that illustrate crones. But let's switch it up. Let's talk about some current day crones who we might find we could identify with parts of them or all of them. And Sally, I think you had one to start off with.
I know. I love it because we were thinking about this in terms of who's out there now that
Yeah.
really is a crone, that is a trendsetter. And I saw on this commercial the other day Martha Stewart, who
Uh-huh.
has recreated herself so many times in her
Yes.
life. And I loved it. She was on there she was talking about Earth actually, and this new, I don't know, Miracle Grow soil. I can't remember. So maybe I'm misquoting. But the gentleman that was there was saying, you really know a lot about dirt. And she said, yeah, I'm a dirt nerd. And she's proud of it. And
Yes.
so I love her playfulness and her ability to recreate herself through all of the things that she's been through in her lifetime.
Yes.
And so whether you agree or disagree, she's amazing at being able to show that resilience
Mm.
and wisdom
Mhm.
that keeps moving herself forward in her life and not just disappearing into the background.
I love that she's helped so many people too, because she really helped people re-engage with creative and wise ways to reinvent our spaces, to value them, to garden, to can. She opened up, I think in her eras, she's opened up a lot of what were old-fashioned skills and brought them into the current day and made them popular.
I
And
love
yeah,
And I love the fact that she was able to go to prison,
thank you.
got out, and move forward.
Exactly. Talk about
Instead of
reinventing
hiding
yourself.
away,
Yeah.
she just stepped right back out there. It was amazing to watch.
Yep, I agree. Well, someone that I think is a crone for our time from the herbal perspective is Rosemary Gladstar. Rosemary Gladstar has been out and about since the 1970s. That's over 50 years, folks. And she is well known as the grandmother of American herbalism because she single-handedly, with a lot of help from a lot of people, but she was the spark, she was the firebrand who reinvented and reestablished American herbalism from the ground up, starting in the 1970s. And she's still active and out there worldwide teaching. Just right now, I know she happens to be a friend of mine is attending a course in Italy with her. And so she is still out there doing all the things to excite and inform and inspire the next generations of herbalists out there?
You know, I'm just sitting here. I'm thinking of the Crones that, you know, like Maggie Smith,
Yep.
Jane Fonda, all
Yes.
these different people that are well known. But I'd like you to look at your own family,
There you go.
because it's occurred to me that my mom was the quintessence of a crone,
Mm.
and she embodied every single one of these attributes. I have seen her do amazing things. And, you know, she was witty, she was bawdy, wise, she could be wicked at times. Mom always got what she wanted. She was very engaging. I always said if she hadn't fallen into the 50s housewife mold, she could
Mhm.
have run freaking IBM. I mean,
Mhm.
or if she had gone into theater, she would have won Oscars and Emmys. And
There we go.
believe me, she was an amazing, amazing woman. And I never really thought of that until we were doing the podcast. And I thought to myself, you know what? You need to look at your elders, at your grandmothers, at your moms. You see them a certain way. But if you're to look back in their histories, I'll bet you're going to be really, really surprised. I mean, look at us, right? We came from wearing mini skirts, boots, or peasant dresses. Remember those long things?
Yes, I do.
Flowers in our hair.
Wait a minute. I still do that. No.
Yeah, right. Wait, am I going back to mini dresses and boots? I might be. You never know.
You might be. That's possible. You might be. So, you know, I mean, look to your elders, because guess what? You're going to find them and talk to them, get their
Mm,
stories, get their
Ah.
herstories.
Yes.
Really important, guys, because guess what? If you're not a crone already, you will become one at some point. And this could be your roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. You know, we were talking to about a particular movie that's out right now called The Miracle Club. It's set in 1967 Dublin, and it's about a whole group of mostly women, couple men, who end up actually going on a much coveted, long awaited trip to Lourdes in France. And during that time, many of them are asking for really large scale miracles. And what ends up happening are a series of small, potent, heartfelt miracles and glimmers and moments that really crack open their lives in such good ways in the end. And Maggie Smith, of course, features handsomely in that particular movie. And I know a couple of us have seen that.
And she was the crone. If you looked at that
Yes.
movie, there
Yes.
was a mother, there
Mhm.
was a queen,
Yes.
and there was a crone.
Yes, there was. Exactly right. The three main females there. It was such a good film. I really loved it. And, you know, a couple of us have been to Lourdes, and for me at least, it really reopened my relationship of that and experience of going to that space, because there's something about going to an acknowledged sacred space where sometimes the earth itself feels differently when your feet are planted there, at least to me.
And it was interesting the way each one of those women related to their situation,
Yes.
and they did it in a way that was applicable to what stage they were in.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. It's interesting because, of course, Linda, I was there at the same time you were, and it took me places I didn't expect to go.
Oh, me too.
And and I think, you know, one of the most stunning moments was each night when everybody got together and pray together.
Mhm.
And to be there in a place where people were from all over the world,
Mhm.
all really praying about unity and
Mhm.
peace and healing for themselves, for their families, for their friends, for
Mhm.
the planet. It was incredibly, incredibly powerful.
Completely agree. And keep in mind, that's one of the places on the planet where prayers are going 24/7. They're going in one of the chapels 24/7, and they have candles you can purchase, but you know, you light prayer candles. There's such a multiplicity of prayers going on the entire time. It's really a special place. And it embraces everyone and meets them exactly where they are. And that's a moment of grace right there, to just be met where you are without any kind of reservation.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So I haven't had a chance to watch Miracle Club yet, but
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to watching it.
Okay. Well, thank you all. You know, so we've been talking a little bit about cycles and portals and the truth. You know, we all go through these various stages, and we touched on this before: conception, birth, growth, youth, maiden, mother, queen, crone. Guys, you fill in your own stages there. And then, of course, for all of us, death. And then rest and recuperation falls in there somewhere, many different places, and rebirth as the wheel turns. But I think of the crone as being a place where we get to live and embrace the mystery, and we become a force of nature because we self-identify with it.
Well, I, for one, couldn't wait to become a crone.
Yeah, tell
I
us
mean,
about that.
I was more than ready for it. And I actually had a ceremony, which I love ceremony.
Mm.
And of course, me being me, I had, for those of you who remember Cecil B. DeMille movies, all the glitz and glamour and
Yes.
wonderful things that went on, that would be my ceremony, right?
Right, right.
And I do believe that on the website, we're going to list a few things that you all can do.
Yes.
Because I encourage you all, if you're getting ready to enter Crondom, because this is probably, for me, it was the last and most important stage. And so I wanted to do it right. I wanted to step into it. I wanted to own it. I wanted to shout it out to the world. I am a crone. And so what I decided to do was, other than having a whole bunch of people here, of course, we had a sacred fire and, you know, the usual stuff that we would do. But it was important to me to write down what I was going to keep in this next stage and what I was going to give away. I changed my clothes, the clothes I came in with. I changed. I gave those clothes to one of my godchildren, and it's interesting. I gave her my clothes and my jewelry that I was wearing, and she's now gone into a private practice as an Ayurvedic practitioner. You know, she's a nurse practitioner, but she's transitioned into this, which I find very interesting.
Very.
Anyway, I digress, as Oshana would say. Of course, I had my flower crown, and I invited all the elements in. We had music, dance. It was just absolutely amazing for me. Okay, so this was my ceremony that I developed. What I would suggest is that you, our listeners, if you're ready for your crondom, develop your own ceremony. You know,
Yes.
one of my
Exactly.
girlfriends, when she became a crone, she changed her name. Just changed her name. And everybody accepted it. We were just like, okay, fine. You're no longer Jane. You're now Ellington. That's okay. It's fine.
Cool.
You know, you may want to have a ceremony at a restaurant where you just have a nice meal and a toast and just acknowledge the person who's becoming the crone. You may want to do a private ceremony.
Yeah.
You know, go to the beach or go to the woods and declare yourself. You know, not everybody is going to be the same. You may want to do, you know, invite someone to officiate, to bless you, to say a prayer with you. You can do that by yourself with one other person, or like me, you can have a big to-do, because for me, that was a lot of fun. You know, of course, we had a party afterwards.
Of course.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Well, if now I know neither one of you have been through a croning ceremony yet.
Not formal at this point, no.
Right. So what elements would you bring into it, just to give our listeners an idea of what they may do?
Sure. Well, part of what I've studied and engaged with the last 40 years is sort of intensive storytelling. And a lot of stories of the divine feminine, goddesses from the world pantheon. So mine would include certain elements of ritual, like body anointing with ritual oils on the chakras, and in order to make sacred once again this wonderful body that I get to walk around in. Thank you. And then calling on the spirit of various goddesses to support change, maybe Athena for strategy and wisdom, and Artemis to strike true and be fiercely protective. And then, of course, Aphrodite, I mean, love and sensuality. And finally, Gaia, the ancient Magna Mater, the earth consciousness itself. And so I think I would use this time to recast my story and maybe revise my beautiful dream accordingly.
I like that. That's so you. And that's a great example of structuring your own ceremony. How about you, Sally? Have you thought about it?
Oh, I have. And I hear you all talking about doing something special in the way of honoring aging, and I want to move into seeing myself as an elder or as a crone. And in some ways, doing this podcast is a piece of that.
Mhm.
Um, when I'm ready, because I do think I'll be ready at some point, I do want to do more of a traditional Tanae croning ceremony with my friends and family.
Ah,
Maybe have a dinner party outside because I
nice.
love being outdoors. So something
Yes.
outside with my family and friends.
Yes.
But that said, honestly, I've been putting it off. I think I was ready when I was younger, meaning in my early 50s when I could have croned. And I was excited about the prospect of being viewed as someone who held honored wisdom.
Hmm.
But I had these two small children, and it made sense to me to wait. I talked with our teacher about when to do that.
Yeah.
It seemed like I was out of sync because I had these two small children. And so moving into this like grandmother position when I was actually a young mother seemed off to me.
Mm.
I put it off because I think that it felt like I would have been distancing myself more from my peers who were mothers, even though we were truly, I could have been their mothers instead of a peer.
Mhm. Mhm.
But as I've gotten older and I see how people who are older are mostly ignored or written off, like in my work arena, because I just recently retired. And so, I was 68 and still working. I feel like it just was weird to crone. But I do think that that whole issue of croning, being seen as an elder in our society right now, is challenging. But it also is, I think for myself, connected to getting older, being closer to death and what that means.
Yes.
It's a big step when my mother died. My father died first, and my mother died. And it was like, oh, it's me now. We're the people that everyone's looking to because the older
Yes.
people are now gone. That was a huge realization. And so in some ways, I think about, I'm not quite ready to take that step because that's that step closer to that transition. So in my mind, honestly, because I always have to analyze everything.
Mhm.
It's like, well, if I don't crone, then I really haven't jumped in with both feet to that step. So so I toy with it all the time. Do I want to crone this year? Do I not want to crone this year? Do I want to be that step closer? Does it mean that I have to fade into the background and start playing some kind of sport like golf or bingo? And don't get me wrong, I love playing bingo, but I don't want to be relegated to just sitting around a bingo table and playing
Right.
bingo.
Right. Right.
So I think when I reconcile all those things, I don't know if I'll do Cecil B. DeMille, but I might do a step down from Cecil B. DeMille
Hmm.
because I do want to do it. And that question of, do I want to crone myself? Do I want to crone with someone else who's also in that place and
Mm.
stage? Like, do I want the focus to be only on me, or do I want to share it with other people? Like, do I want to share it with everybody who's got that purple hat on
Mhm.
and is like, I shall wear purple? So I don't know. I'm not there yet. I may be there, and if I am, I'll share it on the podcast
Oh,
because
very
I
good.
do think there's some things to think about those. So for me, really, it is connected to that next transition that makes one a step closer to death and what that looks like. And, I know that we'll probably talk about those things in the future on the
Yeah.
podcast. And I might be sharing more on that, but not today. I'm not Cronin today.
As a dancer, I want to comment on your stepping back and forth from queendom to crondom. I think it's a lovely dance, so don't worry. You'll be ready when you're ready. You'll know.
I agree. I think part of the reason I wanted to become a crone too was so that I could step out and just kind of go, "Huh, I could do whatever I want now." So there. Much to my husband's chagrin, let me tell you, the poor guy.
Wow.
He had to put
Well,
up with
Betty,
really interesting stuff.
those of you who know me know that that's kind of my personality anyways. Like
It
I'm
is.
wearing that purple hat whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I
So,
don't need to be calling myself a crone to do that. Yeah, exactly.
Which brings a good point. Just because my experience was that I wanted a big whoop-de-doo, okay,
Mhm,
that's not for everybody.
mhm.
And you can easily be a crone without going through all this.
Yeah, of course. And that brings us to our wisdom practice for you this time. Try this on. Invite your inner crone, no matter what your age, invite your inner crone into a conversation and see what stories and wit and wisdom she may have to share with you. And if you get especially adventurous, you might even plan your own croning ceremony. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'd like people to share with us what they would like to do. I mean, it
Sure.
could be anonymous. You can just put it up on our website or our Facebook page, and share with others, like, what elements would you put into your ceremony if you choose to have one?
Yes.
yeah. And as I'm thinking about it, because I hadn't really thought about this before, but and I know that both of you have as well, I've had the opportunity to witness other people's ceremonies or even to help facilitate
Hmm.
other people's honoring ceremonies.
Yeah.
And you may actually have that opportunity to do that with or for your friends. So maybe it's a discussion that you have with some of your friends. Like what are you honoring? Or not what are you honoring as much as how are you honoring where you're at right now in your lives? Even right, you could be 25, you could be 35, and some of you have just become new moms. What are you doing to honor that transition into motherhood?
That's right.
What are you doing to transition into, that phase where children are leaving the home and maybe you're not a queen yet or you're a young queen?
Hmm.
What are you doing to honor that? Because we're talking about croning today, but I think about my own children who had the opportunity to do those rites of passage as young men. And we haven't talked about those kind of rites of passage, but
Hmm.
we don't always do that um, in the world right now, honoring the transitions. And so it's important to think about that. And college can be a transition, entering into the job force can be a transition,
Yes.
becoming a teenager can be a transition,
Hmm.
um, becoming a young 7 or 8-year-old can be a transition, as well
Definitely.
as those transitions that come as you're older. And so you might think about how you would offer yourself to your family and friends to help them bring some of this tradition back into the world that we used to have 50 years ago or 100 years ago.
That's great. I love that.
Beautifully said.
So
Beautifully
good.
said, Sally.
And I think we could probably do an entire podcast on those transitions.
Yes.
I love that thought. Yeah. Well, unbelievably, we've come to the end here of our podcast. I just want to say we really appreciate you tuning into our podcast. Would you please spread the word? Feel free to reach out to us with any questions about this subject. We'd be more than happy to answer questions. And leave a rating. And if you would, share this episode with friends and family. That's how we're growing organically. We love having our listeners pass on the good news to other friends and family. So we appreciate that. And please subscribe. There's usually a little subscribe button there to our podcast with your podcast provider, whoever that is. And please leave us a review on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn sites. Tell us what was most memorable for you about this episode.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to leave until the next one. We'll be doing an interview on the next one with a very exciting woman, actually. So that's all I'm going to tell you, but I think I'm sure that you will enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, we're here to help you navigate the muddy waters of our time. And Linda?
Go outside and ground and seek out a glimmer. Until the next time, be well.
Sally?
And take that glimmer that you found when you went out at Linda's suggestion, and may you walk in beauty. Kadishte. All is made beautiful.
Be well.